With
Yeah.
working at Woodland Hills, you also work a little bit with the girls department or side of it.
Yep.
Do many of those girls not have father figures in their lives, or?
To be honest, unfortunately, they have the problem fathers who have been domestically violent or domestic violently to their wives or girlfriends. They've seen a lot of domestic abuse. They've been misused by, father figures in their life, to be quite honest, which probably creates even more damage than not having a father figure. So yeah, I mean, but as far as just straight absenteeism of a father, I think it affects a boy more than it affects a girl. Just if there's no father in the picture. The girls we work with, unfortunately, it doesn't seem to have as high a correlation. If there's just no father in the picture, moms seem to be able to do a really good job of being able to raise a girl, just single parent. Again, personality plays into it. I can't stress that enough. But then girls are, but the girls we work with have been mistreated by father figures in their life often, unfortunately. So that just adds a whole nother layer to that.
Yep.
I think at some point a boy's going to outgrow their mom's authority, and that's what we consistently see. Is that at some point a boy's just going to say, whether it's at 9 for kids who are overgrown at 9, so to speak, or for that 12-year-old, and they just say, I'm not listening to you, Mom, and I'm going to do whatever I want to do, whenever I want to do it, however I want to do it, and they start to do that, and Mom has a tough time getting control of them. And then there's the issues of the whole economic stuff where Mom's out working and maybe she's working some tough jobs where she has to do shift work, so she can't be at home at the right times of the day to even try to get control of that child. But like I said, I can't stress enough, and I'll just keep coming back to it. Personality plays a lot into it. A lot. It's just not a high correlation. As far as I don't have enough experience or the background to dive into, and I know you're looking for a very specific fathers, mothers, but I can't dive into the whole lesbian parent dynamic as far as them being raised, what the difference is between being raised as in a traditional mom and dad relationship as opposed to a lesbian relationship, and how that affects boys. I think in today's culture it probably does have some effect on boys, but it's tough to me to tell if it has a real adverse effect. Tough to tell.
Okay. So, according to the U.S. DHHS Bureau of Census, 63% of youth suicides are from fatherless homes. Do you think this is correlated with fatherless homes? Or do you
No, I think that's exactly what I've been trying to say my whole time, and that I'll lean on that stat. So that's what I'm talking about. So that does not surprise me, that stat. But the other correlation is, and I don't know how you would test for this, but if you could test and get personality traits, like I said, personality plays a function in this. And I see it all the time in my work, we really deal with a lot of kids who are hypersensitive. They're very insecure. They don't know who they are or what they're about. They're very easily, they are willing to make really self-defeating decisions, break the law, hurt other people for the acceptance of other people. They're vulnerable themselves. And so when you kind of mix that, like insecurity at your core, and you're insecure in who you are and what you're about, and then you throw a fatherless family in there, then you maybe throw a little domestic violence into the mix. If mom's having a boyfriend situation, or you witnessed that as a youngster and then dad went away, and you have some PTSD, and you're kind of depressed about that, you find drugs at an early age, yeah, that's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about, that will lead. But just the mere fact that it's a fatherless home, that's not the only thing going on there. You have to consider fatherlessness in the big picture of all those other factors: personality trait, Was there domestic violence at the home? Is there possible PTSD symptoms or a diagnosis of PTSD? And then I think the next thing that we're really going to start seeing a big thing is because of the availability of porn, on the phones and the tablets, the kids are going to be, exposed earlier than they should be exposed to porn. What I mean by that is prepubescent, and that really has an effect on kids like you can't believe.
Okay.
And we're seeing that a little bit at Woodland Hills already. So like I said, Ezra, it's the real combination of things. But that does not surprise me. But I would qualify it just because you're in a fatherless home. Does it put you at a little bit more at risk for teenage suicide? Of course it does. Is it a game changer? And is the only story there? Probably not.
Okay. So just to switch gears a little bit and focus more on the fathers, why do you think the just not being a father has risen in 100 years?
Yeah, that's a tough one for me to.
I read a study somewhere that Americans just want to stay young forever. Basically, they don't want to grow up. Do you think this has any role to play in it?
Here's what I'd say about that, and here's what I try to teach the clients who are young fathers that I've worked with over my time. Oh boy. Okay, so I think there's some predisposition for males just to walk away from their parenting responsibilities. And what I mean by that is you're wired that way. It's work to be a parent. It's work to have to sacrifice. It's work to stay with one woman and value that woman and value that relationship and not step outside of that relationship. Just like I'm sure it's work for her too. But my point is, men are somewhat predisposed to think in a very physical nature. Mothers, to a certain degree, have a little bit more nurture to them, and just not as much as more nurture to them than men do. So I think that's the first thing that you have to look at is, are men physically predisposed to just being able to up and leave and give and not give much thought to what's going to happen to their children? So I think it's something that has to be taught by a society and something that has to be taught. So once you start to get into a generational thing where you didn't have a father and you've kind of made it, or maybe you haven't made it, or maybe you make it. And I think we see this with some athletes too, where and highly successful people in our society where they father several children with several different women, and they have the means to do it, but they're not a true father to that child, because who could be a true father to 7 or 8 or 9 children with 7 or 8 or 9 different women? So I think there's some physical predisposition to men walking away from their obligation, and then I think to a certain degree, your study probably backs it up, is men want to be free, and then it's kind of what you've been role modeled. Fortunately, I was role modeled for my parents to value their relationship and value their kids, and it was preeminent, very important. And so that's something that was very important to me, and so I think that's kind of where you get into that. And from my perspective of the people that I see who are great fathers in their life, same thing, that it was very important for them to be great fathers, and it was role modeled for them. Having said that, of course, there's always the exception that proves the rule of kids who did not grow up with a father, and because of that, they're super principled about becoming a great father for themselves and do great, incredible things. And that's that personality piece where it's just something like, I'm not going to become what they were, and I'm going to be there for my kids. Or I'm not going to become the drug addict that my dad was and was never there for me. I'm going to be better than him, and are driven and overcome incredible life circumstances to do that. And then what I teach, and just as a side note, what I teach the kids here at Woodland Hills, guys like getting paid off. I think most people do, but I think guys specifically love being paid off, and it's hard to see the payoff when you're taking care of a baby. And so you're taking care of a baby and you're staying home on a Friday night, or you're staying home on a Saturday night, or the baby kind of cramps your style, and you're taking care of that baby with the mother, and you can't do some of the things that you used to be able to do, and it's not really all that fun because babies aren't really all that fun. I don't think guys get off the way women do with the babies. But then suddenly that baby starts to become a child, and then an adolescent, and then a teenager, and then a man or a woman, and you see some of the great things, and that's always been the payoff now for me. The payoff happens well after the investment, and it's the joys of fatherhood, to be quite honest. Watching your kid do something they love, watching your kid do something that you both love to do, or you used to love to do and now can't do it anymore, but watching them do it, how fun that is. So that's the payoff.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Yes.
I think the big thing is the predisposition to walk away, though.
Okay.
And then what's been role modeled for you.
So I just have one more question. What needs to happen in order to change this culture of fatherlessness? What policies would need to be put into place? Are there any policies that could be put into place that would change this, or what, in your opinion, needs to happen?
I don't think the government can do it. I mean, they might be able to help with some stuff, and I wouldn't even know what to talk about it. I think it's like organizations like ourselves in working with young fathers. I mean, you have to get to the young fathers, and you have to give them messages of, hey, this is an important duty of your life. It's not an option. It's not something you can walk away from. This is a duty. You have a responsibility to your child to be a father and to guide them through life, basically. And it's an ongoing thing. It doesn't end when they're 18. It continues until at some point the relationship becomes different, certainly, when you both become adults, but you still should be able to guide your son in adult relationships, especially early adulthood. So I don't know what government can do. I think it's agencies like Woodland Hills and other like agencies who are trying to guide and mentor and convince and role model and find the resources for these fathers to be able to take serious their responsibility that they have to not only their child but to the greater community, because we know when you don't have a father in the household, it leaves the community at risk because of the lack of father. And like I always say, qualify it with the other things that, if you start throwing in the mix, the right personality without a father, the PTSD without a father, the exposure to domestic violence without a father, drugs, alcohol, and then you just keep adding those risk factors, and then the likelihood of something bad happening will definitely increase. So,
great. Well, thanks for doing this interview.
Yep. Wish I had better answers for you.
No, they're great.